At some point in our adult lives, we all find ourselves pausing mid-reaction and thinking, what in the world is wrong with me? Could be that awkward tightening in your voice during heated conversations, or perhaps you apologize profusely, even for things that aren't your fault. We wrestle with guilt over taking a break, despite it being long overdue, and that nagging dread before reaching out for help even when we're in dire need of support. It's like we're stuck in a time loop, where the child version of us is pleading to be heard amid the clamoring adult chaos. Hey everyone, welcome to Psychologist Jeep, a quiet corner of the internet for overthinkers, silent observers, and those who learned early how to read a room before they ever learned how to feel safe in it. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who gets it, and leave a comment telling us where you're listening from or what part of your story this topic touches. You're not alone here. Today, we're talking about something uncomfortable but deeply familiar. The idea that childhood doesn't end when you grow up. The truth is, your childhood quietly shapes the way you love, the way you fear, the way you trust all the way to the very end of your life. The coping mechanisms you built as a child often become the personality traits you carry as an adult. Most folks keep these realizations tucked away, but let's face it, our childhoods are more like a lingering, expressive shadow than a neat little scrapbook we can just shelf. Imagine a tree bent by the wind, holding onto the shapes of its earlier growth years. In the same way, we carry our formative experiences, quietly steering our lives in ways we often don't consciously realize. These childhood echoes become the backdrop to our ever-evolving identities, shaping our relationships, confidence, dreams, and even those quirky emotional habits we can't quite shake off. It all kicks off earlier than we'd care to admit. By 7, our emotional frameworks aren't just lightly dusted. They're being actively sculpted like a lump of wet clay. But it's not just our parents and teachers holding the tools. Every single moment, the tone in the room, a sidelong glance during a rough day, or the reassuring words heard or unheard plays a pivotal role. We might not recall every tiny first, like the comforting embrace of safety or the prickling sensation of being ignored, but our minds are like sponges soaking it all up. As we wade deeper, we start to see that our childhood doesn't merely influence our perceptions. It actually creates a pair of emotional glasses through which we interpret the world around us. Think about it. If you were showered with support, you probably enter new spaces feeling right at home. But if criticism was the order of the day, you might tiptoe into those same rooms expecting to crash and burn. Growing up surrounded by calm might help you stay cool, while a home filled with tension still has your body tight as a drum, even when life is comfortable. Here's where things get extra funky. Childhood doesn't understand boundaries, it just decides to hang around for the long haul. This can turn adulthood into a complex scavenger hunt, filled with cryptic clues about why some emotions weigh heavier than they ought to. Picture this. The sting of rejection feels amplified, silence turns into an awkward, echoing void, and you find yourself second-guessing even the simplest of choices. Are you over-attaching to people? Or perhaps you can't fully let someone in, as if an invisible wall is shielding you from vulnerability. Letting go feels like trying to unfurl an iron grip on a balloon tethered to a million memories. And even accomplishments don't seem to fill that gaping sense of not enough. We might even realize love, even when it's genuine, has transformed into a puzzling labyrinth of feelings. Some days it feels impossible to unwind unless everything is flawless. Deep down, a part of us may still be scrambling to show someone long gone that we've made it, proving our worth. And just like that, the age-old adage rings true. Adults are merely older versions of the children we once were. We may be tall now, but the same fears, dreams, and emotional baggage still rumble through us like a classic sitcom rerun. As we navigate these spirited challenges of adulthood, it's a delightful chaos filled with memories that remind us, no matter how well we pretend, the past plays a starring role in the ongoing episode of our lives. Imagine the brain as a well-tuned instrument during childhood, developing faster than a toddler can say why. The patterns formed in these formative years are like those pesky shortcuts we take when driving. Familiar but not always the best route. Those emotional instincts we gather become the default setting for adult life. The way we handle arguments, Yep, that's rooted in playdates gone wrong and sibling squabbles. So we end up tangled in our old scripts instead of writing new ones. Let's picture a kid raised in a home where hugs and I love yous seem as rare as unicorn sightings. When they hear "you're amazing" from well-meaning adults, they fumble like a deer caught in headlights. They simply weren't taught how to bask in verbal affection. Meanwhile, another child, who felt the pressure to shine like a star to receive love, may grow up hustling for approval, mistakenly believing that love comes on a merit-based system. Tada! That's a recipe for some adulting complications right there. Now, what about those who navigated the emotional roller coaster of a moody household? These adults are like human radar detectors, ceaselessly scanning for turbulence in relationships. Safety was about as predictable as a cat in a bath. Even when life offers tranquility, their nervous systems are on high alert, tuned to the chaos of their youth. It's as if their bodies signed a lifelong contract of vigilance, leaving them caught in an old, wary mindset that screams, "Stay ready for battle." Childhood is where our emotional education begins, laying down cerebral tracks we follow for decades. You might think you're choosing your reactions like selecting fruits from a market. But oh no, most of the time it's those ingrained patterns selecting you. This is why two adults can hear the same innocent comment yet respond like they're from different planets. The difference, the childhood experiences echoing behind those ears, make all the difference in interpreting the messages. Now, let's talk to that inner voice, the one that cheerfully chimes or gloomily drags us along through adulthood. Ever wonder why you may berate yourself like an impatient parent? That's because if the kid version of you heard doubt and impatience, guess what? Buckle up. That voice has gotten cozy and isn't budging. The positive "you can do this" might still be in there, tangled in a web with the discouraging murmurs from before. We're basically handing down our childhood critiques like generational burdens. Yet here's where it gets intriguing. Research reveals that kiddos absorb the emotional ambience of their surroundings, even if the adults are blissfully unaware. So, if stress was the wallpaper in your childhood home, your body absorbed every fiber. Years later, you might catch yourself tensing at a friendly dinner. That's not just nerves. It's your body flashing back to the stress signals you learned all too well in those early years. Calming down can feel as foreign as walking on the moon. Different coping styles evolve from this early emotional training. Perhaps you've evolved into a peacemaker, meticulously avoiding conflict since it was never safe. Or the performer, ever desperate for applause and validation. Maybe you're the caretaker, tirelessly prioritizing others because your value feels tied to being indispensable. And then there are the quiet souls, the ones lurking in the background, convinced that stepping into the spotlight risks their emotional safety. Quite the lineup of characters we become, thanks to those formative years. Some folks grow up with a knack for fixing everything, as if they enrolled in a never-ending course on peacekeeping. It's fascinating to think of these problem-solving skills as survival tactics crafted by a younger version of themselves who had a limited toolbox. These strategies worked wonders back in the day, but they might just be outdated relics now. It's like trying to fix a smartphone using a rotary dial. Funny, but not very effective. Childhood doesn't only sculpt the softer bits of who we are. It carves out our ambitions, fears of failure, and the relentless pursuit to prove ourselves even to the ghosts of our past. Some people rush towards success, not out of joy, but because that innocent child within is still waving their arms to be seen. Funny how we chase perfection like it's some elusive unicorn, simply because earlier in life, messing up felt like a trip over a cliff without a parachute. The avoidance of risks can be a knee-jerk reaction, a lesson learned way before adulthood. It's not that folks can't take risks. It's that the child within them once discovered that risks often ended in disappointment. And let's not forget those who opt to stay small and hidden, survivors of a world where being visible was as uncomfortable as wearing a suit in a sauna. Childhood, then, turns into this invisible navigational map, influencing adult choices with invisible ink. But wait, childhood isn't just about the tangled knots. It has also gifted us with beautiful treasures. Imagine the imagination, resilience, and ability to spot wonder in the smallest moments. That empathy folks possess isn't a burden. It's a superpower born from deeply feeling as a child. You know that moment when you walk into a room and instantly feel the vibes? You can thank your childhood for that emotional radar. It was finely tuned at an early age and became one of your mightiest tools. People often overlook how profoundly our early years shape our identity. After all, they seem like distant memories, don't they? Yet, childhood influences how we express ourselves or decide to trust. Why can't we just ask for reassurance? Because that wasn't always an option back then. Even those unexpected compliments that stir up emotions tap into areas of us that never got the spotlight, echoing our unacknowledged desires and fears. It's astounding how many of our adult reactions are akin to wearing outdated safety gear. Some of us might steer clear of voicing our needs, thanks to that inner child learning that nobody listened anyway. Others burn the midnight oil not out of a love for hustling, but because they think rest should come after punching a clock. And don't even get me started on those who cling to stability, often finding it easier to navigate a lopsided boat than risk capsizing in the unknown. Word to the wise, being stuck in these patterns does not equate to being broken. It signifies resilience and adaptability. You learned how to ski in a world that sometimes felt like an angry avalanche. Those early lessons didn't just happen for fun. They equipped you to deal with loneliness, confusion, and all the moments when life felt overwhelmingly big. Remember, you're not weak because of your childhood experiences. You're human, deeply shaped by it, making you a marvel in a quirky world. Realizing the adult challenges you face often stem from innocent memories, and the patterns you've held on to can be quite the revelation. Those struggles might not scream failure. They merely whisper echoes from your past, weaving through your present like a well-loved melody. Embrace those echoes and dance along, because every step tells a story you've been writing long before you even knew how to hold a pen. Ah, the echoes of our childhood, those pesky little whispers that shape us into who we are today. Think of them as a soundtrack to our lives, often playing tunes we'd rather skip. You may think you're just terrible at relationships, but let's get real. No one handed you a manual on healthy communication. You learned to navigate love like a ship in a storm because, let's face it, you weren't exactly sailing on calm seas. It's less about being bad and more about not knowing the rules of the game. Now, if you see yourself as too sensitive, it's time to rethink that narrative. Growing up in an environment where sensitivity was your survival kit doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise, even if you had to learn the hard way. And let's talk about productivity feeling like a sloth. That's only because your chaos meter is so high that you only feel accomplished when you're juggling flaming swords, not when you pick up a book. Your life is a circus. Isn't it thrilling? Dreams of those grand visions we tuck away in the dark corners of our minds. You might think they're ridiculous, but the truth is, someone forgot to mention that they were possible. When you grow up without cheerleaders, you can't help but feel like your ambitions are outrageous. It's kind of like believing you can fly because you saw a bird do it once but never got the memo on how to flap your own wings. You're allowed to dream, and guess what? It's not a crime. The twists and turns of childhood shaped your existence like a sculptor molding clay. If someone constantly highlighted your flaws, guess what? Those flaws start shouting louder than a marching band in your head, even on silent mode. An unpredictable love life meant you became an affection chaser. And when conflict was the norm, your body became a hyper-alert alarm system. Many of us grew up believing we were supposed to hold everything together, which, let's be honest, is a tall order for anyone. But holding up childhood doesn't just pinch your emotions. It rewires your brain like a master electrician setting up a complicated circuit. Those neural pathways, my friend, are the highways of your mind. They dictate how you handle fear, trust, and even your connections with others. Ever find yourself reacting to a situation with dramatic flair, even though it was just someone asking how your day was? That's your brain, living in the past and throwing wild parties with your old experiences. Let's dig deeper. Ever noticed why certain people make you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Why do warm compliments make you teary-eyed? Or why do you freeze like a deer in headlights when asked what you want? These are not random quirks. They are your psyche's way of waving a flag, memories in disguise. Childhood isn't just a chapter tucked away. It's an ongoing saga playing out in how you breathe and in every awkward hug you give. But here's the real kicker. Just because your early years shaped you doesn't mean they hold you hostage. Awareness is like flipping the script. It turns the past from an author of your life to merely a reference guide. Once you start noticing those pesky patterns, you can distinguish between who you were trained to be and who you were meant to be. That resilience you often overlook, it's the quiet superhero lurking beneath your layers, ready to stand tall and shine. Every struggle has been a stepping stone to reveal your inner strength. So wear it proud. Feeling empathetic, observant, or even strong isn't just a coincidence. It's the result of life's little school of hard knocks. It's about deep emotional lessons and becoming essentially equipped for what comes next. Being gentle stems from a genuine understanding of the damage raw harshness can inflict. Childhood might lay down the foundation, but rest assured, it doesn't build the entire structure of your existence. Growing up, you start to realize that you're capable of so much more than those early days allowed. As you transition into adulthood, that once insurmountable wall of childhood fears starts to look more like a flimsy piece of paper. It hits you, those fears, while formerly crippling, are now just polite little signals rather than ironclad sentences. The cacophony of the past may still echo in the background, but adulthood gives you the mic, allowing you to respond in your own uniquely empowered way rather than acquiescing to past demands. This newfound power is exhilarating. Healing isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. Oh no, it's much more enlightening than that. It's about actively re-educating those bits of you that remain tethered to old, dusty fears and wounds. You're like a self-appointed life coach, teaching yourself the intricacies of what safety, love, and rest should feel and sound like. It's a crash course in self-worth where saying no becomes a badge of honor, and where mistakes are merely stepping stones, not limitations on your value. Start paying attention, because healing often creeps in during the quiet moments of life. Think about those seconds when you pause before responding in a knee-jerk fashion, or when a familiar emotion tickles the edges of your consciousness but you bravely opt for a fresh reaction. Each tiny, innocent moment offers an opportunity to feel things you've kept tucked away for eons, leading to a newfound comfort in discomfort. It's not a dramatic overhaul. It's a soft, gentle evolution. One of the trickiest aspects of adulting is shaking off those pesky beliefs instilled in childhood. You've likely picked up ideas like love is earned or perfection is paramount, and let's not forget the classic I'm not enough. These were never objective truths, just shadows from experiences you didn't choose but have clung to all the same. As you grow, it's crucial to recognize that these beliefs can be rewritten. They are like old furniture that needs a fresh coat of paint to shine brightly. To foster this change, you must approach those insidious thoughts with a sense of calm curiosity. Instead of throwing a temper tantrum about your feelings, ask yourself whether they stem from your current reality or an older version of you. Is this fear protecting, or is it merely exerting control? This line of questioning enables a healthy separation between your past and the possibilities of the present, creating a healing space where growth can begin. Sometimes, you might discover that what you once perceived as weaknesses are actually clever adaptations your mind concocted for survival. Overthinking? A noble attempt to keep your battleground safe. People-pleasing? Your way of maintaining harmony amidst chaos. Those protective traits had your back when you needed them most, but it's essential to pivot from fighting against yourself to guiding your inner being gently. Guidance, not punishment, is what you truly needed all along. In this free-for-all on emotional growth, some fortunate folks were showered with affirmations throughout their upbringing, while others had to embark on their self-learning odyssey a bit later. The universe has a way of balancing itself. Ultimately, it's all about channeling that inner cheerleader, nurturing a sense of self-worth, and embracing the journey of becoming your best version.